Hey everyone, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking some truly fascinating research by Dr. Raja Tiwari. We're going to be looking at a deeply overlooked area, the psychological ecosystem of the family caregiver. You know, when a child gets diagnosed with a learning disability, the dynamic of the entire family shifts overnight. But the immense psychological weight that the caregiver carries, that's rarely the center of the conversation. Well, Dr. Tiwari's review completely changes that by bringing the caregiver's mental well-being right to the forefront where it belongs.
To give us a quick roadmap today, we're going to cover 5 main things: the hidden impact of caregiving, how our personality shapes coping, emotional intelligence as a mediator, measuring quality of life, and finally, how we can actually step up and support our caregivers.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, the hidden caregiver impact. Usually, when we talk about learning disabilities, things like dyslexia, dysgraphia, or dyscalculia, our focus goes straight to the child's academic struggles. And rightly so. But this research asks us to flip the script and zoom out to the mother. It asks us to look at her internal world, which is often just weighed down by invisible stress, guilt, stigma, and a ton of uncertainty about her kid's future. It turns out, learning disabilities reshape the emotional landscape of the entire family, not just the student.
So, the huge takeaway established right out of the gate is this: you literally cannot separate the caregiver's well-being from the child's progress. They are entirely intertwined. A parent's psychological health directly influences the child's development. If the caregiver is overwhelmed and burning out, the child absolutely feels it. So supporting the caregiver isn't just some nice secondary concern, it is exactly how you support the child.
Which brings us to Section 2, how personality shapes coping.
Think of your personality as your baseline, kind of like your internal hardware. Using the well-known 5-factor model, we can actually see how our stable traits dictate how we handle the stress of caregiving. On one hand, we've got vulnerabilities. High neuroticism, for instance, is linked to way more anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and a much heavier perceived burden. But then, we have this incredible toolkit of strengths. Extroversion gets you out there seeking social support. Agreeableness builds tighter parent-child bonds. Conscientiousness enables highly structured, adaptive care routines. And openness? That makes a parent far more receptive to accepting the diagnosis and trying out new interventions.
If we just take a step back and compare the two extremes here, wow, the contrast is stark. Caregivers skewing higher in neuroticism report significantly more burden, depressive symptoms, and even hopelessness. It is an incredibly tough road. On the flip side, conscientiousness acts like this massive engine for resilience, leading to adaptive coping and much healthier family dynamics. This data heavily underscores why clinical personality assessments are absolutely crucial. If we know a caregiver's baseline traits early on, we know exactly what kind of support they're going to need.
So, if personality is your unchangeable hardware, let's jump to Section 3 to see how we can actually install a software update: emotional intelligence as a mediator. This is where the research gets super exciting. It identifies emotional intelligence, or EI, not just as some rare innate gift that you're either born with or you're not, but as a highly trainable protective buffer. This is a total game changer. Emotional intelligence acts as a mediator. It literally stands between the intense stress of caregiving and a parent's ultimate well-being, actively enabling resilience and lowering distress. Building on the foundational work of experts like Goleman, Salovey, and Mayer, the research highlights 4 core EI competencies that become a caregiver's superpower. First up, emotional awareness, meaning you actually recognize your own burnout before it crashes into a crisis. Then, emotional regulation, the ability to respond calmly in a tough moment instead of reacting impulsively. Add in empathy, to truly connect with your child's frustrating inner world. And finally, social skills, which empower parents to confidently collaborate and advocate for their kid with teachers and clinicians.
When you put it all together, it forms this brilliant system dynamics model. Step 1 is the foundation. Your innate personality traits prime how you'll respond to stress. Step 2 is the mediator. Your emotional intelligence kicks in to translate those traits into actual stress regulation. And step 3 is the outcome. Blending adaptive traits with high EI leads directly to a measurably better quality of life. It's an entire system that buffers you against burnout.
Speaking of outcomes, let's look at Section 4, measuring quality of life.
When we look at the World Health Organization's framework, it really opens your eyes to the multi-dimensional toll caregiving takes. Guys, it's not just feeling tired. We are talking about severe impairment across 4 distinct areas. Physically, you're looking at hypertension and wrecked sleep. Psychologically, it's anxiety and guilt. Socially, there's immense isolation and stigma. And then the environmental and financial quadrant reveals the staggering everyday costs of therapy, special education, and fighting for basic resources.
And the data highlights a pretty stark and frankly unfair reality. Mothers end up carrying a massively disproportionate chunk of this day-to-day burden. On top of that, the financial strain we just mentioned, it compounds exponentially in developing countries. When specialized resources are scarce or totally non-existent, the cost, both to the wallet and the mind, skyrockets. But, understanding the psychological ecosystem was only half the battle. We absolutely have to take action.
Which leads us right into our final section, Section 5, Supporting Our Caregivers.
The research here is calling for a massive systemic shift. Clinicians need to stop treating only the child. They need to start screening caregivers early on for those high-risk traits we talked about, offering real targeted counseling. And educators, they've got to move past just handing out grades and focus on building genuine, empathetic partnerships with parents, offering crystal-clear guidance on academic planning and interventions.
We also need to push for aggressive structural changes at the broader policy level. I'm talking about fully funded accessible EI and resilience-building programs. We need peer support groups, so literally no one has to navigate this in isolation. We need massive community campaigns to crush the stigma around learning disabilities. And crucially, we need targeted, culturally sensitive longitudinal studies, especially in places like India, where the current data highlights major gaps in resources.
As we wrap up this explainer, if you internalize only one thing, let it be this. Caregiver health is child health. They aren't two separate tracks. The psychological well-being of the parent directly dictates the academic, social, and emotional success of the child.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on today. Our educational and medical systems spend endless hours, and rightly so, figuring out how to teach the child. But who is teaching the caregiver how to survive? Recognizing, screening, and actively training our caregivers in emotional resilience might just be the most vital intervention of them all. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this reframes how you look at the incredible hidden strength of the family caregiver.